She is a witch, and we cannot allow her to remain among us. The village of Umudike was a place where tradition ran deep, and the villagers lived in harmony with nature. They farmed, fished, and shared stories by the fireside. The village was small, but it was a close-knit community where everyone knew each other. One day, a joyful event filled the air with excitement. Eze, the village blacksmith, and his wife Amara were expecting their first child. The entire village gathered outside their huts, waiting for the cry of the newborn baby. The midwives, experienced women with gentle hands and wise eyes, assisted Amara as she labored for the first time. Finally, as the sun began to set, a baby's cry pierced the air. A collective sign of relief and happiness spread through the crowd. Eze, now a proud father, came out of the hut with tears of joy in his eyes. "It's a girl," he announced proudly. The neighbors around cheered and sang songs of celebration. The baby girl was named Adaku, meaning daughter of wealth, for she was considered a blessing and a sign of prosperity. As custom demands, the village healer Nneka was called to bless the child. Nneka, an elderly woman with a kind face and eyes that seemed to see into the soul, took the baby in her arms. "May you bring joy and abundance to Umudike," Nneka whispered, touching Adaku's forehead with her sacred herbs. The parent cheered again, feeling a deep sense of joy and hope. However, as the days turned into weeks, strange occurrences began to happen around the village. It started slowly, with small things that could easily be dismissed. Pots would fall off shelves without reasons. Animals began to behave strangely, and many other strange things. The villagers initially felt it was normal and didn't read any serious meaning to it. But later they started to whisper among themselves, although some believed that the strange events were a coincidence, while others began to wonder if there was a connection to the newborn baby. Eze and Amara noticed the shift in the villagers' behavior, but they were too excited by their beautiful daughter to give it much thought. As Adaku grew older, so did the strange occurrences increase. One day, when she was barely 2 years old, the villagers gathered for the annual harvest festival. The air was filled with scents of roasted yam and freshly harvested corn. Music and laughter echoed through the village square. In the midst of the celebration, a sudden silence fell. The villagers turned to see little Adaku standing with her arms stretched out. All eyes were concentrating on her face. Before anyone could react, a strong gust of wind swept through the square, lifting leaves and dust into a wide wind around her. The villagers gasped in amusement and fear. "She is a witch," someone shouted from the crowd. Fear and suspicion spread like wildfire. The joyous occasion quickly turned sober. Eze and Amara rushed to their daughter, shading her from the frightened stare from the villagers. Just then Nneka stepped forward, raising her hands to calm the crowd. "Peace, everyone," she said firmly. "Adaku is just but a child. Let us not jump into conclusion." Despite Nneka's words, the villagers' fear increases. They began to distance themselves from Adaku and her family. Children were told not to play with her, and neighbors stopped visiting. They were almost living like an outcast in their own village. Eze and Amara felt the weight of the village suspicions, but they loved their daughter deeply and stood by her. As the month passes, Adaku became more powerful. She could communicate with animals and often had dreams that foretold future events. Her parents tried to keep these new occurrences a secret, fearing that if the villagers get to find out, it will cause their daughter more harm than good. But in a small village like Umudike, secrets were hard to keep. The once joyous village now harbored a sense of unease. People whispered behind closed doors and cast a fearful glance at Adaku whenever she passes. Eze and Amara worried for their daughter's future, but remained hopeful that the villagers would come to understand her. Despite the growing fear, there was one person who never believed Adaku was an evil child, her little best friend, Obi. Obi was a spirited boy with a white smile and a soft heart. He saw Adaku not as a witch, but as a fellow child who needed understanding and acceptance. "Don't worry, Adaku," Obi would say. "One day, everyone will see how special you are." Adaku cherished Obi's friendship. It gave her the strength to face the daily challenges. As she grew, she continued to explore her abilities, often confiding in Nneka, who became her mentor and guide. Nneka saw greatness in Adaku and believed that her powers could bring good to Umudike. As the village prepared for another harvest festival, the tension between Adaku's family and the rest of the villagers grew. The birth of Adaku had indeed brought a change to Umudike, but it was up to the villagers to decide whether it would be a blessing or a curse. Adaku grew up in the shadow of suspicion, but within her home, she found warmth and love. Her parents, Eze and Amara, never let the villagers whispered affected their devotion to her. They believed that one day the villagers would understand that their daughter was not a curse but a blessing. As Adaku reached her 5th year, her unique ability became more active. She had always been able to communicate with animals, but now she could also sense their emotions. Birds would land on her shoulder, creeping joyfully, and stray dogs following her around, wagging their tails. Adaku often found herself speaking to them, understanding their needs and feeling as if they were human. One afternoon, Adaku and Obi went to the riverbank. They loved playing by the riverbank, where they would skip stones and chase after frogs. As they laughed and played, Adaku noticed a deer on the opposite bank, its leg caught in a trap. "Obi, look," she pointed at the distressed animal. Without hesitation, Adaku crossed the shallow part of the river and approached the deer. She knelt beside it, whispering soothing words. To Obi's surprise, the deer calmed down, allowing Adaku to free its leg from the trap. The deer touched her hand before disappearing into the forest. "How did you do that?" Obi asked. Adaku smiled. "I just knew what to say. It's like they can understand me." Obi smiled. "That's amazing, Adaku. You are really special." Despite Obi's admiration, Adaku knew that others would not see it in the same way. She had seen the fear in the villagers' eyes, heard the whispered behind her back. She longed to be accepted, but she had also feared her own ability. As the month passes, Adaku began having strange dreams. They were vivid and often felt real. In one of her dreams, she saw a violent storm that would destroy their crops. She quickly woke up in a cold sweat and told her parents about it. Eze and Amara listened carefully. They had learned to trust their daughter's instincts. We should prepare, Eze said. Better to be safe than sorry. The next day, Eze and Amara worked tirelessly to secure their crops, building barriers and shelter to protect them from the predicted storm. When they shared their concern with the villagers, many laughed it off. There hasn't been a storm like that in years, they said reluctantly. But 3 days later, dark cloud gathered, the wind howled, and the sky turned grey. The storm Adaku had seen in her dream arrived with fury, tearing through the village and its field. Crops were destroyed, and homes were damaged. However, thanks to Adaku's warning, Eze and Amara crops were safe. The villagers began to take notice. Some whispered that Adaku has caused the storm, while others started to see her warnings as a gift. But fear and superstition ran deep, and many still kept their distance. One evening, as the family sat by the fireside, Amara spoke gently to Adaku. "My child, you have a gift. It's not something to be afraid of. The villagers may not understand now, but one day they would see the good you can bring." Adaku nodded, but her heart was heavy. She wanted to be like other children, to play and laugh without the burden of her powers. Yet, deep down, she knew her path was different. As Adaku continued to grow, she learned to control her ability better. With Nneka's guidance, she practiced using herbs and chants to heal minor injuries and illness. Nneka, the village healer, had become a second mother to her, always encouraging and teaching her the ways of their ancestors. One day, while collecting herbs in the forest with Nneka, Adaku had a vision. She saw a snake slithering towards a young boy playing near the river. She gasped and grabbed Nneka's hand. "Nneka, we have to hurry. There is a boy in danger by the riverside." Nneka didn't question Adaku. She had learned to trust the young girl's vision. They rushed to the riverside and found a boy, barely 5 years old, playing near the river. Just as Adaku had seen, a snake was approaching him, ready to strike. Without hesitation, Adaku grabbed a stick and carefully but firmly pushed the snake away, ensuring it goes back into the bush unharmed. The boy, knowing the danger he had been in, looked up at Adaku with a wide eye. "Thank you," he said quietly. His mother, who had been nearby, rushed over and hugged her son tightly. When she realized what happened, she looked at Adaku with a mixture of fear and gratitude. "You saved him," she whispered, tears in her eyes. Adaku simply nodded, her heart pounding. She knew that despite saving the boy, the villagers' fear of her would not go easily. Nneka placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You did well, my child. You have a good heart." The day turned into weeks, and the villagers' attitude towards Adaku remained divided. Some began to see her as a protector, while others continued to look at her with suspicion. Adaku learned to be herself despite the villagers' view of her and also learned to use her powers for good things. One evening, as Adaku and Obi were sitting by the riverside, Adaku asked Obi a question. "Do you ever wish you were just like everyone else?" Adaku asked quietly. Obi thought for a moment. "No, I think being different is what makes you special, and one day everyone will see that." Adaku smiled, feeling a glimmer of hope. She knew her journey was far from over, but with friends like Obi and the support of her family, she felt ready to face whatever challenges that lies ahead. The village of Umudike had yet to fully accept and understand Adaku's power. But in time, they would come to realize that the witch girl was not a curse, but a blessing in disguise. As days goes by, Adaku and Obi's relationship became inseparable. They spent their days always going to the forests and rivers, always on the lookout for new adventures. On this particular day, they decided to visit their favorite spot by the riverside. As they approached the riverbank, suddenly a cry for help shattered the peaceful scene. Adaku and Obi ran to the scene. They saw a young boy struggling in the river, almost getting drowned in the river. "Obi, we have to help him," Adaku shouted, running towards the river. Without hesitation, she dove into the water, her heart pounding. She reached the boy just as he was about to go under. Grabbing his arm, she pulled him towards the shore with all her strength. Obi was there, waiting to pull them both out of the water. The boy, drenched and shivering, gasped for breath as he lay on the riverbank. Adaku knelt beside him, checking to make sure he was okay. "You are safe now," she said softly. Suddenly, a crowd of villagers gathered, drawn by the commotion. Among them was the boy's mother, who rushed forward, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for saving my son," she cried, hugging the boy tightly. But as the villagers looked on, their relief turned to suspicion. Ikenna, who had always been jealous of Adaku, stepped forward with a hardened face. "What happened here?" he demanded. Obi spoke up. "The boy fell into the river and Adaku saved him. She was brave and quick." Ikenna's eye narrowed. Or perhaps she had something to do with him falling into the river in the first place, he said, his voice filled with accusation. The villagers murmured among themselves. Adaku stood up, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I didn't do anything wrong. I only wanted to help," she pleaded. But the damage was done already. The whisper of witchcraft began to spread through the crowd like wildfire. Eze and Amara arrived on time, having heard the commotion. They quickly took Adaku into their arms, shading her from the angry stares. "Enough!" Eze's voice boomed. "Adaku saved that boy's life. How dare you accuse her without reasons?" Nneka stepped forward, her presence commanding respect. "Eze is right. Adaku had shown nothing but kindness and bravery. We should be grateful for her quick actions today and not judge or accuse her wrongly. She is but a child." But Ikenna was not convinced. There were too many strange things happening around this girl. "We cannot ignore the signs," he insisted. The village chief, Mr. Ajala, who had been observing silently, finally spoke. "We will discuss this matter further, but for now, let us all return to our homes." The crowd all scattered, but the air was thick with tension. Eze and Amara led Adaku back to their huts, their hearts heavy with worry. "We will get through this," Amara whispered, trying to comfort her daughter. That night, Adaku lay in her bed, staring at the roof of her hut. She couldn't understand why the villagers were so quick to fear her. She had only wanted to help. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered to herself, "I am not a witch. I am just Adaku." The days that followed were difficult. The villagers avoided Adaku and her family even more. Children were forbidden to play with her anywhere, and the whispers grew louder. Eze and Amara tried to shade her from the harsh words, but it was impossible to escape the suspicion that hung over them like a dark cloud. Despite everything, Obi remained by her side as a true friend. He stood up for her whenever anyone spoke ill of her, always reminding her of her strength and goodness. Don't let them bring you down, Adaku. You are special, and one day they will see it, he said, trying to lift her spirits. Adaku found comfort in the forest, where she could escape the judgmental eyes of the villagers. She spent hours among the trees, talking to the animals and practicing her abilities. She had grown more skilled at controlling her powers, but she kept them hidden, fearing they would only increase the villagers' fear. One evening, as Adaku sat by the river, Nneka joined her. The old healer had always been a source of wisdom and comfort for Adaku. Adaku, she said gently, I know it is hard because you are a child, but you must be strong. Your powers are a gift, and one day the villagers will come to accept you and understand. Adaku sighed. I just want to be like every other children. I don't want to be feared. Nneka smiled kindly. Being different is not a curse, Adaku. It is a blessing. You have a purpose, and in time, you will see it. As the sun set over Umudike, Adaku felt a glimmer of hope. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, but with the support of her family, Obi, and Nneka, she believed she could find her place in the village. But little did she know, the true test of her courage and ability was yet to come. The incident at the river was just the beginning of a journey that would change her life and the fate of Umudike forever. If you want me to continue with the part 2, let me know at the comment section below.